The fluorescent lights of the gas station flickered overhead as Marcus wiped his grease-stained hands on his worn jeans. His stomach growled, a familiar companion these past few months, but he pushed the feeling aside. At 34, he'd learned that hunger was just another challenge to endure, like the stack of overdue bills tucked in his glove compartment or the worn-out soles of his work boots that he couldn't afford to replace. Being a single father to 7-year-old Emma meant his needs always came second, and he'd made peace with that long ago. What he hadn't made peace with was the hollow look in his daughter's eyes when she asked why they couldn't afford the school field trip, or why dinner was cereal again. Those moments cut deeper than any empty stomach ever could. It was nearly 9 o'clock on a Thursday evening when Marcus noticed the silver sedan pulled over on the shoulder, hood up, hazard lights blinking like a desperate plea for help. He'd just finished his second shift at the auto repair shop and was heading to pick up Emma from his neighbor Mrs. Chen, who watched her while he worked late. Every fiber in his exhausted body screamed to keep driving, to get home, to collapse into bed for the few hours of sleep he could squeeze in before starting all over again tomorrow. But his father's voice echoed in his mind, "Son, when you see someone in trouble, you stop. Doesn't matter if you're tired, broke, or running late. That's what decent people do." Marcus pulled his ancient pickup truck behind the sedan and approached cautiously. A woman in her mid-50s stood beside the vehicle, her business suit rumpled, mascara streaked from crying. Her phone was pressed to her ear, and he could hear the frustration in her voice as she spoke to what sounded like a towing company. "They're saying it'll be at least 3 hours, she said, her voice breaking. "I don't have 3 hours. She noticed Marcus and quickly ended the call, wariness creeping into her expression. "Evening, ma'am," Marcus said, maintaining a respectful distance. "I'm a mechanic. Mind if I take a look?" The woman, who introduced herself as Patricia, hesitated for only a moment before nodding. "I don't have much cash on me," she warned, clutching her purse tightly. "Let's just see what we're dealing with first," Marcus replied, already leaning over the engine. 15 minutes later, he diagnosed the problem: a loose battery cable and a failed alternator belt. He had a spare belt in his truck from a recent job, and the cable just needed tightening. It was an easy fix, maybe 30 minutes of work. "How much is this going to cost me?" Patricia asked nervously. Marcus glanced at his watch. Emma was waiting. Mrs. Chen would understand if he was a bit late, but he hated making his daughter wait. Still, he couldn't leave this woman stranded on a dark highway. "I'll tell you what," he said, a tired smile crossing his face. "I skipped dinner to work a double shift today. You got a sandwich or something? That'd be payment enough." Patricia stared at him as if he'd spoken a foreign language. "A sandwich? You'd fix my car for a sandwich?" "Yes, ma'am. You clearly need to be somewhere important, and I've got the tools and know-how. Seems like a fair trade to me." Tears welled up in Patricia's eyes as she rummaged through her car, producing a turkey sandwich she'd bought at lunch but never eaten. "It's not much," she whispered. "It's perfect," Marcus assured her, and got to work. As he worked, Patricia made small talk, learning about Emma, about Marcus's 2 jobs, about the struggles of single parenthood. She shared that she was rushing to the hospital where her own daughter was in labor with her first child. "I can't miss this," she'd said. "I already missed so much of her life because of my career. I can't miss this too." "You won't," Marcus promised, tightening the last bolt. "Fire her up." The engine roared to life, and Patricia let out a sob of relief. She tried to hand Marcus a business card, but he waved it off. "Just pay it forward," he said. "Help someone else when they need it." He watched her taillights disappear into the night, ate the sandwich in 4 large bites, and drove to pick up his daughter. The next morning started like any other. Marcus dropped Emma at school, headed to his first shift at the shop, and tried not to think about the electricity bill that was now 2 months overdue. He was under a Chevy Silverado, wrestling with a stubborn oil pan, when his boss called him into the office. "Marcus, there's someone here to see you," his boss said, an odd expression on his face. In the small, cluttered office stood Patricia, but she looked different, composed, professional, powerful. Next to her stood a younger woman holding a newborn baby, and a man in an expensive suit carrying a briefcase. "Marcus," Patricia said, her voice thick with emotion, "I'd like you to meet my daughter, Jennifer, my new grandson, and my attorney, David." Marcus wiped his hands, confused. I don't understand. You gave me something precious last night, Patricia explained. Time I can never get back. I made it to the hospital with 20 minutes to spare before Jennifer went into delivery. I got to hold her hand. I got to be there for my grandson's first breath. Because of you, I didn't miss the most important moment of my life. She paused, composing herself. I need to tell you something. I'm the CEO of Heartwarming Industries. We manufacture automotive parts. Last night, I was coming from a board meeting where we just discussed opening a new distribution center here in town. We need someone to manage it, someone with mechanical expertise, integrity, and heart. The salary is $90,000 a year, plus benefits and a company car. I want you to take the job. Marcus felt the room spin. I can't, that's too much. I just helped you out. No, Jennifer spoke up, tears streaming down her face. You gave my mom back to me. She's spent my whole life putting work first, and last night was supposed to be the same. But you changed that. This isn't charity. This is recognition. Mom showed me your work record. You've been Employee of the Month 7 times in the past year at this shop. You're overqualified to be working for minimum wage. The attorney stepped forward. There's more. We've established a trust fund for Emma's education, fully funded through graduate school. And we've arranged for first and last month's rent on a 3-bedroom apartment in a safe neighborhood, if you choose to accept it. Marcus couldn't speak. His legs felt weak. Everything he'd struggled for, everything he'd sacrificed, every night he'd gone to bed hungry so Emma could eat, it was all suddenly lifted from his shoulders. Why? He finally whispered. It was just a sandwich. Patricia stepped closer, placing a hand on his shoulder. My father used to say that character is what you do when nobody's watching and you have nothing to gain. You had every reason to drive past me last night. You were exhausted, hungry, worried about your daughter. But you stopped anyway. You asked for a sandwich when most people would have charged me $200. That kind of goodness is rare, Marcus. And I'm in a position to reward it. Please, let me. Marcus thought of Emma, of the life he could give her now. Real meals, new clothes, piano lessons she'd been begging for. A future that didn't involve choosing between electricity and groceries. He thought of his father's words about helping people in need, and how that simple principle had somehow, impossibly, come full circle. When do I start? He asked, his voice breaking. 3 months later, Marcus stood in the kitchen of their new apartment, preparing dinner while Emma practiced piano in the living room. The medical bills from her mother's final illness, the debt that had buried them, was paid off. His daughter was thriving, her smile genuine again. And every day at Heartwarming Industries, he made sure to treat every employee with the same dignity and respect he'd once craved himself. Patricia had become a fixture in their lives, a grandmother figure to Emma and a friend to Marcus. She'd kept her promise to her daughter, stepping back from the constant work grind to be present for her family. And it all started because one exhausted man chose kindness over convenience, compassion over comfort. On his desk at work, Marcus kept that business card Patricia had tried to give him that first night, now framed with a simple inscription, "Pay it forward." And he did, every single day, knowing that a single sandwich had bought him more than a meal. It had restored his faith in the power of humanity, proving that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness create the biggest ripples of change.